There it goes. Okay. All right. So next week, as I emailed about a while ago, we have a change in the number of pages in e-editions for several of our publications. It's I can't think of a non-jargony term, but essentially, as I'm sure several of you have noticed, we have publications that are significantly larger than the content that they generate calls for. And so the plan is to shrink those publications so that they better match the news that they have, so that they're more of a quality product instead of a quantity product. So that starts with Monday's e-editions. The papers most affected, the ones that are cutting the most pages, is going to be Brainerd, Wilmer. I think that's really the two that's going to be a significant difference. So, keep an eye out for that. Let me know how you feel like that's going as it goes through that. Yeah, Meredith.
Could you tell us a little bit about how those determinations were made? Like how many pages to go down for which publications?
Yeah, basically, I didn't do the actual research part, but someone looked at, how many pages were done each day, how much of the content was local content, how much of the non-local content was like relevant and timely, and then how much of the non-local content kind of seemed like, well, we had another 3 pages, so we put this here. And also on the analytics for when people are going through the e-paper, when they get to the point where they're like, yeah, I don't care anymore. So, yeah, just, based on the content generated by the site, the content really relevant to the site, and what the readers were doing with the editions.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
So we've got that change happening. The other big change last week or next week, and I'm sorry for springing this on you, but it was kind of sprung on me as well, is that we do have some publication deadline changes, and one of them is a big one. And that is that Brainerd, because of some press issues and truck issues and all kinds of logistics that I didn't really want to get into, they are moving. So their A section on Tuesdays and Fridays is going to be due at 3:45 p.m. and their B and C sections is going to be due at 4:45 p.m. I am working on getting them updated content deadlines. They will be getting a significant amount of their content is going to need to be in early. Right now, for the Wednesday Brainerd print, that doesn't come in until, sometimes it's like 10:30 in the morning. We don't have those pages in advance to work on them in advance. And that is going to be changing. We're going to have those pages early Monday afternoon to be able to start working on them. And they will have content ready as well then. So that's happening. I will send out an email later this week with what the full content deadlines for that looks like, what things are going to look like for that. The domino of that change is that some of Duluth just has to go a bit earlier. The big one is that for the Wednesday edition, the D and C sections are due at 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. respectively. So essentially, we need to make sure that those are completed on Monday. And they do generally have the content in for those Monday. We just don't always get to it. So we just need to make sure that we get to it. The BPEJ will move to 2:30 for the B section and 3:30 for the A section. On Wednesday, the BECS is going to move to 2:15 p.m. And that's the scope of it for right now. So, yep, Emily.
I was just wondering when the OBIT deadlines will be then, since they're usually in the C section and D section, I guess.
So Duluth OBIT deadline, we are still hashing out. That should be done either tonight or tomorrow. And Brainerd's OBIT deadline is going to be at noon Tuesday and Friday. So, and Brainerd's OBITs go in their A section. So OBITs at noon, and then that pages have to be sent by 3:45. So it is likely that for Duluth, their OBITs will deadline the evening before with this change. Yep, Emily.
And then, so you said the D section was going to be due. Is that for both days of the week, like both print days?
No, Tuesday D is due at 7 a.m. The Saturday D is 10 a.m.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so Wednesday deadlines are D at 7, C at 9, and A and B at 1. For Saturday, it's C at 9, D at 10, B at noon, A at 1. Again, I will email these out to you. You don't have to memorize them. But
Okay, thanks.
yeah, so that's what those changes look like. With this, obviously, this means that we do need to adjust some schedules. Yep, Mary?
If I'm hearing you right, I think those are the sections that usually have home and abroad pages with them also.
Yep. Yeah, so that's something that I have to talk to Rick about as I'm hashing out some of this stuff as well. Because, yeah, trying to, we're not going to come up with a home and abroad page and have the page done by 9 a.m. That's not really, not going to work. So.
Okay.
So we are going to have to adjust some schedules for this. So if you want a change in your schedule, if there's any part about your schedule that you would like adjusted on any day of the week, because there's parts of this that affect all the days of the week. And so we're looking at that, and especially with the e-edition page changes dropping, trying to figure out that. So if there's anything at all about your schedule that you would like changed, please send me an email, ideally today, but by the end of the day tomorrow at the latest. Even if it's just like, I wish I started 1 hour earlier on Thursdays, or, I wish I had a longer Thursday and a shorter Wednesday, or I don't want to work nights anymore, whatever it is, let me know. Because as we change schedules, obviously, if anybody has a preference, you're the people whose schedule I want to change, because I want to change it to your preference, if that's at all possible. In the interim here, some of you we will be talking to, like today, tomorrow, about, short-term changes while we figure out what the workflow looks like and exactly who we need and when. So just be aware of that. Obviously, if something really doesn't work for you, it really doesn't work for you. But if there's a way that you can make it work, we would really appreciate that. We're trying to figure out how to make this all work right now. Next week, as we adjust to this, we're also going to be offering overtime. So if you would like overtime, especially on Tuesday, on Thursday night, and on Friday, like come in an hour earlier, leave an hour earlier, take extra, whatever, please let me know, and I'll get you approved on the schedule for that. So those are those changes. I don't have all of the answers quite yet, but what questions do you have? Yep, Meredith.
Could you just again say which publications are affected? I heard Brainerd. I think I missed.
Yeah, so the Brainerd Dispatch, the Duluth News Tribune, the BPEJ, so the Pine and Lakes Echo Journal, and then the Brainerd Shopper. And on December 9th, Cloquet will move, and that will be sent to press at noon on Thursday then. So we'll just have a one small adjustment for them. So any other questions on that right now? Okay. As always, if you think of questions, please let me know. If I don't have the answers, I will figure the answer out. And it's good to have other people asking questions because often you have questions I didn't think of. So let me know. The next few weeks, we'll just kind of do our best to figure it out, be flexible and make it work. And as we see exactly how this change fits into our workflow and what that looks like, then we will make permanent staffing adjustments to make it work. So, all right. So moving on, the next thing I want to talk about, and I would like everyone's feedback on this, especially those of you who worked last night, is about the election. I'm putting together a list of kind of notes on the election on things that went well, things that didn't go well, things that I did that were stupid. So that we can kind of compile a list across the company and the different departments of parts of how we set it up this year, what worked, what didn't work, what made things easier, harder, all of that. Learn from that. And then I'm going to put it in a time capsule and bury it under I'm going to use the scheduled send email and send it to myself like in August of 2024 so that everything we learned from this election, we don't have to relearn on the next one, including that my company card cannot be used to buy pizza gift cards, and I should not try it because I know I was cutting it close on those Pizza Hut cards, you all, and I apologize. So any thoughts that you all have on how election stuff went yesterday, and a reminder that you're not going to hurt my feelings. I've already added many things to this list that are things that I should have and could have done better. So bring it on. What do you got?
Well, I was gonna ask, because I worked 9 to 6 yesterday, and I did not do any election stuff pretty much whatsoever.
Mhm.
Which honestly, from the sound of it, yay. But I'm just wondering if there were, if like for next year, is there any earlier setup that some of us who aren't going to be there for the election stuff need to do, or maybe should we be or I got ahead with some of my advanced that I usually don't get done, but is there other ways that we can help people early on in the day, even if we're not going to be there later at night? Because there were some times where like I could see people were running around like crazy, but I was just like doing stuff with comics, and I felt really bad because it was chaos, but everything was under control for me.
That's excellent thinking. I was quite sure there was stuff that, we could add you do. All right, what else?
I'll bring it up. Slack communication. A lot of us have our notifications turned off, and that to go off at a certain time. And I know mine was one of them too. So we just need to remind people to take those off, or use that different Slack app or whatever, because it is better about getting notifications. But yeah, so some of the communications there was hiccups, definitely.
All right.
One thing that came up for Dickinson and Rochester were the graphics that were prepared with the mugs and the percentages and the total votes that were in at that time. I feel like design-wise, that's really nice to look at a paper and go directly to that. And if you really want to dive in deeper, you can then read the story. But with Dickinson and Rochester, they just didn't prepare that or write their stories that way where all that information was included. So it was a bit of a, hey, what are we supposed to do with this? But it's required. We want to have this, you know, the same for everybody across the board. But then we just didn't have that information. I unfortunately said I was good to go, and Jeff basically signed off. And then I was asked, well, where are these things? And I just kind of felt like I dropped the ball, but also the editor didn't know to provide those numbers in a better way for us to have them at the very beginning or in the notes or anything like that. So if we do that again, I feel like that just needs to be clearer across the board, the expectations and whatnot.
That's fair.
Forum also didn't know about that.
Okay. Okay, what else? In terms of how the plan was to assign out pages, like having that set ahead of time in terms of, you know, this designer is going to do this section and this person will be the pod editor. Did you all find that helpful? Not helpful?
I thought it was helpful, knowing ahead of the game, you know, who I was going to be working with and what I was assigned that day. I thought was helpful. But the only thing that I came across was I think Eden was in charge of Rochester until 8. And so it was like I mentally wanted to dive in and focus on it. So I didn't, you know, but obviously she was already focused on it. So I was just trying to find best way we could both hand it off to each other. And then there ended up being like very minimal amounts that Eden could even do. So she was doing other things. And it was just, again, kind of like what Lily said, wanting to do as much prep work as possible, but also when you're not provided any of the budget lines. I don't think Brian got stuff for Rochester budgeted until closer to 5 for the election pages. So that was unfortunate also.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that as kind of a trend that for whatever reason, a lot of the sites did not have budget lines in until pretty late in the game, which it doesn't make any sense to me at all. There were no surprise ballot initiatives. They all knew what was coming and they assigned people way, way ahead of time. So that's on the list too.
I know a lot of this seems like it's coming from Rochester, but I also didn't have the art that I thought I would. I was expecting each story mention mugs, but most of them did not have the mugs. They were lucky they had a photo of someone voting on a booth, you know, online, not even including the mugs of the candidates. So again, one of those things for the graphics that I wish I had, but I couldn't even provide. So making that clear for the editors. Expectations.
The other thing, as far as budget line goes, is that my editor didn't know where to put them. And so we kind of had to work out. She emailed them to me, and then I kind of worked out where to put the budget lines and let her know that this is where you can link.
The issue I had with one of my papers, Alicia, you know this, is that they left as soon as they filed everything with old results. And so that kind of led to a bit of a cluster there. So that, I mean, but that was really the only, so it's a big issue, but it's the only issue I ran into last night personally.
One of the things that I worked with Jake a lot last night. One of the things that I noticed too was that I was kind of asking him for, just because I didn't actually know, you know, our entire plan. I was asking him to do stuff that I didn't end up using on the page, right? For example, like I asked him if he could put in like the results for the judges, you know, the numbers. So he spent all that time doing that just for me to realize like I didn't have mugs. So then I didn't really know the best way to do it, and it was already late, you know. So like I think maybe ahead of time we can work around some of those scenarios, because I know like the examples are like, here's the winner, here's the person that they went against, here are the numbers, like in a perfect world. But Jamestown was only providing like mugs of the winners and nobody else. So I had like weird spaces with, you know, where the one of the candidates wasn't there, and then we had a write-in one, which I know wasn't also in the example. We had like Republican, Democrat, and like third party. I didn't know if the third party was the write-in. So, you know, just a couple of those things that I think we could have went over ahead of time. Not that that would have come up because that wasn't really in my brain, but now that we know for next year or for 2024, stuff kind of to come up that we could talk about.
What else? Y'all have to stay here with me for 6 more minutes either way, so we can stare awkwardly or.
Well, I got one more then that I talked about in our hub manager meeting. I think it's all my stuff's the same thing as stuff we could have done ahead of time, but I think that at some point we have to say, you know, your copy's in at midnight, and after that we're not updating stuff anymore. You know, kind of say that like 3 times to editors, and you know, so the pod knows what's up, the designers know what's up, and we kind of have, you know, a little bit of an idea of what we're gonna do. So you know, someone like Matt knows when, you know, he's linking up all that stuff, so the designer knows when we're linking up all that stuff, so we know how late people are going to stay. You know, I think we could do a lot of that ahead of time too. And I know, like I said before, that I'm not the one that's telling, you know, the forum we can't do this anymore, but I think if, you know, we lay that groundwork ahead of time, then I don't think we're, you know, being mean or unhelpful to any of those papers. If it's like, here's the plan, here's what we're doing this based on staffing, like we've done with multiple of our other adjustments, that I think that could go a long way in kind of all of us kind of having an idea when copy will come in, when, you know, when, you know, we are calling a story done, not necessarily if the race is done or anything along those lines.
Yes, that makes sense to me. I know definitely that caused some issues. Designers, I already talked to some pod people, but designers, what did you all feel like were the specific things that sort of led to the domino effect of, you know, not getting things in on time, or, you know, design all of a sudden being harder, or stopping your ability to just keep working and get stuff done, whatever.
I'll add one. One of the things that put me behind was the reporter knew that I was the editor assigned to the story, but she didn't know to Slack me directly in a direct message, and she was trying to tag me or find me in like a Fargo only copy channel, and then she tagged me in the pod main channel, and since I was hyper focused on getting these stories updated into the designer, I didn't see it. So it took me a while to track her and her story down. And I think she just didn't know to just Slack me rather than tag me in a channel. I mean, then that's partially on me. I could have reached out to the people that I was assigned to and just say the best way to communicate with me. But that could have also been shared you know, at earlier stages in the planning if it wasn't.
All right. In terms of shared elements, how do you all feel like that went? Like having that block of stuff that you just placed on the North Dakota page, having the governor skybox that you could just place. How helpful was that? Are there other things like that that you would like to see for the next election? Yeah, Emma.
I really like the shared pages. I think that really helps the designers out, having one person put it together, having a word count, having all those expectations clear across the board. What I struggled with was seeing that and even seeing your screenshot in your email, and I was still confused when there were 3 stories listed, for example, for Dickinson, for North Dakota 1, and then Dickinson put a story on their budget, and I'm just like, where is this 4th story going to go? Am I replacing it with another story on that page, or what the heck am I doing? And then I realized that there was a 4th. Like, yes, it said it in the email, but I was so in tune with what I was doing for Pine and Lakes that I didn't really get a chance to focus on election stuff until 5. And I felt like maybe taking it one step further on the digest would have been noting, you know, that it was a 4-story cover, and noting the top rail centerpiece and bottom, and noting bottom story being local, you know, X amount of inches available for local story or whatever that may have been. I also felt I was a little confused about the jumps. I know it all end up working out, and obviously with the e-edition stuff, we can always add another page. You guys are so good about that. But it was just kind of like, well, you know, they fit, they don't. You know, this one little 300-word story, if it doesn't fit, I guess we'll have to add a page, and then I don't know what we're doing with the rest, but I'm told it'll get in somehow. It was maybe just a little bit lack on how we were going to handle that, with just everybody being a little bit different and not having the same amount of copy.
All right, makes sense. Thank you. Michael?
Well, I was just going to say the same thing about the jump. I was a little bit confused about it personally. I had a couple of conversations with a couple of pod editors as we tried to figure that out. And I also think that it would have helped that as soon as that page was done, it was posted to a channel so that jumps could be checked against it. And it gave people more of a visualization that that page is complete. Those jumps actually do go there. And here's how we can double check those. I know I did that late in the night, but a bunch of stuff had already been approved before that. So that would have helped a little bit earlier. Because yeah, I know that I had confusion about it and didn't necessarily communicate the best I could about where that stuff was going or providing a visual reference of it earlier.
Sure. All right, what else? Okay. If you have other feedback, you know, if you don't want to say it to my face, you can just email me. If you don't want to say it to my email, you can email it to Michael, and then he'll just copy and paste it without your name. That's fine too. I'm really okay with that. You know, like I said, I know there were things that didn't go well, and a fair amount of that's on me. So, but any thoughts that you have, I really do want to hear them so that I can make this the most useful that it can be, so that the next election goes smoother and we can avoid some of the hurdles that we had this time. So again, if you're thinking about any kind of a scheduled change, send me a message. And if you're open to any overtime next week, send me a message about that as well. So thank you. Nancy and Matt, can you two stick around?